Good evening, members.
Good evening, Chairman.
And good evening to any members of the public that are here. Can I ask Canon Michael Webber to say prayers, please?
O God our Father, we give thanks tonight for the service our officers and members give to the community. May we all have a sense of thankfulness for the blessings that God gives us. As we prepare for Christmas, give us a sense of peace in our troubled world and the assurance of your love as shown in the coming of Christ, who shows us the way to live and to serve you. Amen.
Amen.
Can I ask if you agree to be signing the minutes of the last copy of the meeting?
Agreed.
Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we do. We have apologies from Councillor Alan Chadler, the probable apologies from Councillor John Shepherd, and Councillor Ian Barrett, and Councillor Cecilia Irving Swift, and Councillor John Aldrich.
Declaration of members' interest. Do we have anybody what's on the agenda? Chairman's announcements, item 5. I did send a list out. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but it has been a fairly busy period. I've enjoyed every moment of it. There's one item I would like to just quickly talk about. On November the 26th, we were invited down to Royal Albert Hall for Music for Youth proms. One item on the programme was music from The Mighty Sky that the children had learnt at workshops during the summer. The orchestra from Daventry Music and Performing Arts Centre played alongside Kirklees Youth Orchestra and Clifton Music Academy, together with 550 singers. 150 who came from the Grange School, Ashby Field School, Weedenbeck Primary, Naseby Primary and Gilsbury School. From what I heard on that night with this item and the rest of the programme, I believe the future of the music is in safe hands. Thank you, that's all I want to say. Item 6, questions under Council Procedure Rules 10 and 11. We have 2 questions from members of the public. I believe you have copies of them on your desks. First question from Aidan Ramsey to Councillor Chris Miller. Mr. Ramsey here. Would you like to read your question out?
Okay. Would the leader of the council make a statement on 1, the money spent by Daventry District Council to date on consultancy fees, staff costs and on work related to the proposed water space and canal extension in Daventry? Number 2, Daventry District Council has anticipated expenditure in the coming 5 years on work related to the water space and canal extension. Number 3, Daventry District Council's current estimate of the total cost of constructing the water space and canal extension. And number 4, the current estimate of what the annual cost of maintaining the water space and canal extension will be.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr Ramsey for his questions, and I answer them the best way I can. First of all, taking the question to deal with the canal arm proposals and not the wider development of adjacent land in Daventry town centre, which would happen anyway, if not to the same quality. To date, a total of £1.279 million has been spent. Of this, around £308,000 is in staff time, and the remainder will largely be consulting costs of various kinds. Looking forward, the Council has a budget of £2.376 million currently allocated to the project. This is expected to be spent within the next 5 years. However, as with the Phoenix project, it is hoped that this will act as a seed corn to attract other funding, for example from the lottery, so the total expenditure may be much higher. The estimate of cost for the canal without the boat lift was £12 million, for the boat lift alone £8 million, but for the two constructed together, a total of £16 million. This is because the boat lift removed the need for 4 locks. In terms of maintenance costs, KPMG reported for the creation of the Canal and River Trust that the new trust would expect to spend £61.5 million each year, that's across the whole country, maintaining and operating over 3,000 kilometres of canal and river. On that basis, the Daventry arm would cost around £62,000 per year to maintain. However, the actual cost should be substantially lower, since it would be newly constructed using modern engineering. Maintenance costs will be offset by income from commercial development associated with the canal and long-term mooring fees. The Council continues to pursue this project because it can see the benefits it would bring in terms of tourism and profile for the whole district, not just Daventry Town. Thank you, Chairman.
Second question is from Mr Ken Ritchie to Councillor Chris Miller.
Thank you, Chair. This question follows on from a question I asked at the equivalent meeting last year in 4th December. I then asked the Leader of the Council whether DDC would, and here I quote from the minutes of that meeting, consider setting up a working group of councillors and community representatives with the task of preparing proposals to foster deeper understanding and harmony amongst the different communities that make up the population of Daventry District, and preparing recommendations. My question then went on to propose a number of issues that I thought such a group might consider. In response, the Leader of the Council advised, and here again I quote from the minutes, that due consideration would be given to the establishment of such a group. Now, just on the 29th of October of this year, in response to a Freedom of Information inquiry, and I was sorry that it required a Freedom of Information inquiry to get the information, I was told that, and this is again a quote from a member of the DD staff's response to me, Councillors Hill and Miller have met and discussed this issue and have concluded that a working group is not required based on the Council's knowledge that this is not a major issue in this district. I would therefore be grateful if the Leader of the Council could inform me when his meeting with Councillor Hills took place, how many people from outside the UK have moved to Daventry District in the past 5 years? That is not just referring to those who are on the electoral register, but whether or not they are registered. What percentage of these people don't have adequate ability in English to allow them to compete in the job market, other than for unskilled work, and to play a part in the wider community? What work has been done to measure the attitudes to and the perceptions of immigrant communities, whether from Eastern Europe or elsewhere, by other residents than long-term residents of the district? And finally, what has led Councillor Hills and himself to conclude that the proposed working group was not necessary?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr Ritchie for his questions, and I'm happy to answer them the best way I can. Unemployment in the district, including among young people, is very low. This is unlikely. It is unlikely that a problem of English is causing anyone difficulties in obtaining work. We don't count the numbers Mr. Ritchie asked about. Publicly available census data records records a total population of 77,843, of which 2,540 residents of the district with a country of origin in Europe, that's excluding Ireland, Madam Chairman. Of these, 2,013 originated from accession countries. That's a 2.36% in total. Many of the district's European citizens have probably lived here for many years, having first emigrated following EU changes in 2001. While there are unemployed people of working age, the job seekers allowance number indicates those who are categorised as able to work. Of the 38,600 district residents deemed economically active, there are currently 410 job seeker allowance claimants. Unemployment is very low. Community tension is not a major issue in Daventry district, and if and when minor issues come to light, these are effectively dealt with by the council and other partners through the Community Safety Partnership or other multi-agency fora as appropriate. There are tensions across the country in terms of newly arrived residents, whether from Europe or elsewhere worldwide, but these are not marked in the district. We are not aware of any local studies regarding immigrant communities. I would say, Mr. Richam, I can't tell you the date Mr. Hills and myself met, Councillor Hills, because we meet informally on a regular basis anyway. And this item was discussed between the two of us. We didn't have minutes or anything. We had informal meetings, as I do with a number of my senior portfolio holders and other members. And so therefore I can't give you the date and when we met. But I can assure you, because of these reasons I just explained, we felt at this time there was no issue to set up a working group. That's not to say your idea is not without merit, and if we ever felt the need to do so, we would do. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Questions from members of the council? We have two. Billy, the first one, first councillor. Oh no, sorry. Question from Councillor Nigel Carr to Councillor Chris Miller.
Thank you, Chair. As Mr. Ramsey's already stolen my thunder, if the Chair will allow me, I won't reiterate and go over the first part of my question to Chris Miller, but I'd like to ask the second part, which is, has a date been set for when work shall commence on the water features road canal, as I'd hate to see it turn into another floor Weedham bypass saga going on for 70 years, as I believe this is coming up to 20 years now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to say thank you, Councillor Carr, for your question. You have set the record actually with this question. I'm not sure you're aware, you actually submitted this question on the 9th of November. So I congratulate you for getting it in good time for this meeting today. So well done. When I first saw it, I was quite surprised. Went to a council meeting, but well done, you got it in good time. So thank you for that, Nigel. I'll answer your question actually. I take on board the point, and I've answered some of your points with Mr. Ritchie. The actual current intentions for work to commence on the first phase of the canal in the town centre in 2017/18. Thank you.
Second question is Councillor Abigail Campbell to Councillor Chris Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I actually submitted two questions and they've been merged into one, so I'll do the first one and then all at the same time. So the first question. We are experiencing the greatest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. 4.1 million people have fled Syria and a further 7.6 million have been internally displaced. This government has committed to resettling 20,000 Syrian refugees over the course of the Parliament. To date, a few hundred Syrians have been resettled, but the government has indicated that it wishes to secure places for 1,000 refugees by the end of this year. Harrington MP is responsible for coordinating the resettlement of Syrian refugees across the UK through the Syrian Vulnerable Person Resettlement Programme, and also for providing support from the international aid budget to local councils who take part in the programme. Will you therefore write to Richard Harrington MP to indicate this local authority's interest in taking part in the Vulnerable Person Resettlement Programme? And will you also commit to working with local communities, faith groups, housing associations and others who may wish to assist this council to do its bit to help refugees seeking sanctuary in this country?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank Councillor Campbell for the questions. Actually, you'd be very pleased to hear it's a very short answer to both of them. The answer is yes.
Thank you very much. Quite gobsmacked. On the 1st of December, a new electoral register was finalised based on individual electoral registration. This council has worked hard to encourage maximum registration, despite the government foreshortening the registration period by 12 months against the advice of the Electoral Commission. Can you supply the number of people on the register now and the number on the register at the time of the May elections earlier this year? And could you also provide a ward-by-ward comparison of registration figures for the same two councils?
Madam Chairman. Well, thank you again, Councillor Campbell. The answer isn't quite so short this time. I just want to say, I'll explain some things to you, then we can take it further than that. I will supply information to all members, including yourself, about the actual numbers for each ward. The transition to individual electoral registration, or IER, as we call it, ended with the publication of the revised register on the 1st of December 2015. Entries for electors who were not confirmed and had not made a successful individual application to register were removed from the December register. The monthly register is a snapshot in time as additions and removals, as you'll probably be aware, continue to be made as applications are confirmed. The annual canvass has only recently been completed and several hundred applications are in the pipeline for confirmation and adding to the register. The overall registration total for the May 2015 register is 60,987 and the overall registration total for the December 2015 register is 59,702. The ward-by-ward comparisons I can give you, I'll give you a couple just for your information. Braunston and Welton. In May, your patch, in May 2015 it was 1961 and December 2015 it's 1947. So there's a small difference there of about 14, if my maths is right. In Brixworth, our biggest ward is 5,326 in May 2015 and 5,279 in December 2015. I will distribute all these figures, Madam Chairman, all the wards are listed here, to all members that can see this on email tomorrow. The district total, therefore, May was 60,987, and in December 2015, 59,702. I should point out that staff in this area have actually worked very, very hard to get as many people on the register as they can do. They've gone beyond the pale, I would say, to try and make sure. But obviously some people are very resistant to actually giving that information out or confirming their position. But we'll continue to do that. As I said, there are some in the pipeline. So I just want to reassure you we're doing everything, this council is doing everything it can to try and encourage people to register and therefore have the opportunity to vote. Thank you, Chairman.
Item 7, reports of committees. Would you like to read these on block?
Very
Thank you. Item 8 is recommendations of committee. First item is SG 56/15/01, Councillor Learning and Development. Councillor Long, would you like to propose this recommendation?
Thank you, Chairman. I give this report on behalf of Councillor Cecile Vincent. The objective of this report is to review councillor learning and development during 2014 and 15 and present the learning and development plan for 2015 and 16. The report is self-explanatory, detailing the efforts of the Member Development Working Group in assisting new members to develop the skills necessary to undertake their role as councillors. It also details their efforts in assisting members to understand the nature and contents of papers placed before them in order that they are able to make informed decisions when called upon so to do. The summary of training activities for the year 2014 and 15 and that 2015-16 can be found in 3 appendices to the report. Appendix A contains the summary of the in-house training sessions provided during 2014 and 15. Appendix B details the agreed training provided by external facilitators during the same period. And Appendix C details a summary of the in-house training already provided during 2015-16 and that which is scheduled for the remainder of the period. Chairman, with this information to hand, I would ask members to agree the recommendations that 1. Progress on council development is noted. 2. That all councillors should attend the planned programmes on planning and finance, asterisk on the Learning and Development Plan for 2015-16, as recommended by the Member Learning and Development Group. And 3. That the Member Learning and Development Plan for 2015-16 is endorsed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second for that? Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to speak, however, I would like to draw members' attention to the enormous energy that is now taking place amongst the members of the Learning and Development Group. It's been very successful and attendance figures have improved. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just on point 2, the plan programmes for planning, I've already submitted a couple of emails to say that the training is on the same night as a planning committee, and facts are after 2 hours your concentration levels begin to waver. Therefore, I feel that having such an important training to be then followed on by a planning meeting is not the best evening to have it. And I've felt that I need to be fully concentrating on that planning committee, which is why I haven't attended the training beforehand. So I would like to see it on a different night, the same as all the other training. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry to disagree with you, Councillor Mandel. I think the completely opposite view. I think it's better to have it on an evening where you've got planning. Very often the training, as per the last training, the last one that was given, we used some of the training, we put it into use on a definite planning application, went a certain way because people had attended the training session and were fresh and they used that. I really think it's best to have it before the committee. It's a perfect system for doing it rather than having it separate time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I concur with the Chairman on planning and also note that at the last planning meeting, as Chairman here forwarded an invitation to the Planning Committee to attend the briefings as observers during the afternoon period for purely simply a learning process, Madam. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? In that case, this recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Members, would you agree?
Agree.
I'll vote against that one.
Next item is SG 56/15/02, counter fraud strategy. Councillor Christoph.
Thank you.
Would you like to move the recommendation?
Thank you. As with other organisations, Daventry District Council is at the risk of losses through fraud, bribery and corruption. The authority recognises that as well as causing financial loss, such activities are also detrimental to the provision of services and damaging to the reputation of and confidence in the Council. To safeguard itself, the Council is committed to making sure that the opportunity for fraud, bribery and corruption is reduced to the lowest possible risk within existing resources. Following a comprehensive review of its fraud policies in 2014 and the reassessment of specialist corporate fraud resources, an exercise has been undertaken to identify fraud and corruption risk at Daventry District Council. Further work is planned to enhance the results of this exercise by assessing the residual risk and identifying risk owners. It's a responsibility of the Corporate Governance Committee, in line with its terms of reference, to review the effectiveness of the Council's counter-fraud corruption arrangements. In June, the Corporate Governance Committee received the results from the review of the Council's counter-fraud arrangements. The review identified a number of proposed improvements which have been considered and incorporated into the proposed new strategy. The strategy, detailed in Appendix 1 to this report, outlines the Council's commitment and approach to tackling fraud, bribery and corruption. The approach for meeting the aims and objectives of the strategy focuses on three core elements: prevent, deter and detect. These elements are detailed on pages 8 to 14 of the counter-fraud strategy and require no further comment from me. The strategy applies to all those who work for or interact with the Council, including employees, members, contractors, suppliers and service users. Fraud against the Council is not acceptable in any form, and the Council will seek full redress through criminal and or the civil courts to counter any internal or external fraudulent activities perpetrated against it. To summarise, in order to create and promote a robust anti-fraud culture, highlighting the Council's zero tolerance of fraud, bribery and corruption, which is essential for the Council to have a counter-fraud strategy, setting out its approach to the managing its risk and defining responsibilities for action. An organisation that is resilient to the threat of fraud and corruption will protect the Council's financial resources and help minimise the likelihood and extent of losses, thus maximising the opportunity to achieve positive outcomes for the community. I therefore ask members to agree the recommendation that the counter-fraud strategy 2015-18 and associated work programme covering the period to the end of 2016-17 financial year as outlined in Appendix 1 be adopted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a second for that recommendation? Thank you very much. Members, do I have your agreement to that recommendation? Next item is SG 63/15/01, Food and Health and Safety Service Plans. Councillor Warren, would you like to...
Thank you, Chair. The Food Standard Agency and the Health and Safety Executive have issued statutory instructions to local authorities. These require the Council to produce a service plan for food safety and occupational health and safety. Although there are minor differences between the requirements of the plan, the major requirements are common in both plans. In addition, for food safety only, there must be procedures and capacity to deal with food safety incidents. And the second is foodstuffs must be sampled in accordance with central government guidance. The attached plans show the proposed implementation of these plans for Daventry District Council. There are no significant changes to the 2014-15 service plans, although the minor changes include emphasis that the better regulation concept is a key part of our regulatory service, and the inclusion of workplace health and well-being within the occupational health and safety priority themes. The service plans will form an operational direction that the Council in respect for food and health and safety enforcement. In conclusion, the approval and advancement of the 2015-16 Food Safety and Health Safety Service Plans will satisfy the requirements of the Food Standard Agency and the Health and Safety Executive. I therefore ask that it be recommended that the Council approve the Food Service Plan and Health and Safety Service Plan for the year April 2015 to 31st March 2016.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Do we have a second for that, please?
Please, a second that, Madam Chair.
Would you like to speak? Councillor Hills, would you like to speak on it? No. Right, we have a proposer and a seconder for that item. Members, can I ask for your approval for the recommendation? Thank you. Next item is SG 63/15/02, Review of Allocation Scheme. Councillor Warren again.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to consider the responses made to the consultation exercise on the focus review of the allocation scheme and to recommend revisions accordingly. Members will recall that in July 2015, a meeting of the Strategy Group Authority was granted to undertake consultation on minor revisions to the allocation scheme. This was to address the introduction of new legislation which provides a legal basis for the government to process right to remove for existing social tenants and work-related reasons. Responding to issues of low-demand property, through the proposed inclusion of low-demand property protocol, and 3, to clarify approval arrangements for local letting arrangements and make some other minor changes. In addition, during the period it was identified that it was necessary to address 2 further issues, and the issues being those that have been accepted as homeless by the council due to harm or violence in other areas would not have a local connection to the area and therefore are not entitled to register on a housing waiting list. However, the council had a duty towards these people under Part 7 of the Housing Act 1996, leaving these applicants in temporary accommodation, including bed and breakfast, for a prolonged period would have a financial implication to the council and possibly a detrimental effect on the applicant's health and well-being. The numbers in this category are very low. Currently, some children in care are placed outside of the district by Northamptonshire County Council. Once they have left care, they may not be able to return to the district due to being able to establish a local connection. Hence, he has requested that this be changed in the interest of the welfare of the young people concerned. The numbers involved, again, are expected to be extremely low. It is therefore considered the allocation scheme be changed to allow these groups of applicants into the list without local connection. Registered providers were consulted on these further changes and no objections were raised. These changes were therefore proposed. As noted on page 122, Appendix B, to the Strategy Group report was accidentally omitted. This has been provided on pages 77 to 129 of the Council papers. Appendix B simply shows what the text of the housing allocation scheme would be with the proposed changes. Councillor Osborne will be pleased to see that reference to the care leavers on page 89 refers to those originating from Daventry District. With that in mind, I would ask members to recommend that 1. That the suggested responses to the consultation on the allocation scheme review as set out in Appendix A of the report be noted. 2. That the proposed changes to the allocation scheme as set out in Appendix B of the report be agreed. And 3. That the allocation scheme revised as per 2 above be adopted. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a second for that, please? Would you like to say anything?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the review and the proposed changes, especially the low demand property protocol, which I think will really help. I think it's important we also commit to continuing to review and monitor the impact of the changes that we're making and approving tonight. I think it's interesting that a number of registered providers suggested there was a problem as much with the nature of our housing register as with our property. And it's a case of monitoring that. Several registered providers seem to call for us to review the criteria for people who join our housing register, and I think we need to be mindful of that. It was most concerning to read from DDH that they had problems letting a brand new bungalow, which we've all talked about previously in this chamber as being what we think is high demand. So I think it's, as I say, I think it's important we continue to review our allocation scheme and see if future changes need to be made to how we admit people to the housing register. Thank you.
In that case, I can... Sorry? Sorry. In that case, if we've had it's been proposed and seconded, could I ask members to approve the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next item. Next item is SG 64/15/01, West Haddon Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Charter isn't. Oh, sorry. I'm not doing very well today. Sorry. SG 63/15/03, Vision of Contaminated Land Strategy. I was just trying to save talking again.
Very kind of you, Chair, thank you. This report, since April 2000, local authorities have had a duty to manage contaminated land issues within their areas. The duty was conferred to Part 2A of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. The associated statutory guidance. The Act gives local authorities the lead role in dealing with contaminated land and requires each authority to publish a written strategy setting out how it will carry out its duties. Daventry District Council published its strategic approach to managing contaminated land in July 2001. Following the publication in April 2012, the new statutory guidance from DEFRA, the 2001 Contaminated Land Strategy, has been reviewed and revised. The revision policy set out in Appendix 1 outlines how Council will implement the contaminated land regime, taking account of the latest guidance. 2001 strategy set out an approach which involved a complex process of site prioritisation, followed by a proactive site inspection. It was intended that officers would use their powers to require landowners to remedy or control the potential risk of pollution. In practice, environmental protection officers found that the extent of development within the district secured an ongoing programme of remediation without the need for proactive enforcement work. The strategy now proposed reflects this approach, which reflects actual national practice and is a continuation of the status quo here in Daventry. Even though the approach is proactively identified and remedy contaminated land, as intended by the 2001 strategy, has not been delivered. The operational reality is owners, through the management of development, is an effective means of identifying, managing and controlling contaminated land risks. Many potentially polluting sites have already been remediated, redeveloped or still in active industrial use. Many brownfield sites have been or are due to be developed under planning controls which will ensure that are remediated where necessary. In summary, this update reflects the continued use of planning development process to remediate potential contaminated land as against the proactive enforcement-led approach envisioned by the original strategy. This is explained in more detail under point 4, strategy inspection. See pages 16 to 19 of the updated strategy document in Appendix 1. In conclusion, most of the potentially polluted sites across the district have already been remediated, redeveloped, or are still in active industrial use. The Council considers it can better prioritise its responses to the risks of land contamination within the district by acting on information concerning the current status of sites. This approach will combine use of development control provisions for sites undergoing development with a robust response to reports and complaints about potential contamination. This approach would replace the provision prioritisation and proactive site inspection approach set out in the 2001 strategy. I therefore ask that the recommendation that the Contaminated Land Strategy January 2016 revision be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Do we have a second, please? I think Councillor Warren, would you like to speak? case, this item has been proposed and seconded. Could I ask members if they approve the recommendation? SG 63/15/04, Gambling Act 2005, Policy Statement, 3-yearly review. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Yes, this is a policy which we have a statutory duty to review every 3 years, and our officers have worked very hard to bring the policy up to date. Only a few very minor changes, having taken advice from the Gambling Commission. The only major one, in my view, is the fact that we were advised that each authority should have its own policy, and therefore the partners in the county has to have its own statement, and therefore that their logos have disappeared from the front of the policy document. Can I just remind councillors that back in 2006, the government of the day were looking quite kindly on the idea of super casinos, locations within the UK, not designated. However, we took the view that this would not be appropriate for the district, and therefore we adopted a no casino policy back in 2006, and that has stood ever since. However, if we were to receive an application for a casino in the district, it would certainly be considered, obviously through the planning process, and we can in fact revoke that resolution if it was deemed appropriate. I will therefore ask Council to approve these two recommendations, that the Council adopts the Gambling Act 2005 policy statement as shown at Appendix 1 of the report, and that the Council adopts a no casinos resolution under Section 166 of the Gambling Act 2005. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to second it. I have nothing to add to the excellent presentation that Councillor Carter put forward, Chairman.
Right, this item has been... Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually rather fancied seconding this one myself. In a bit of a move where I'm poacher turned gamekeeper, I must confess I have quite a good knowledge of the Gambling Act 2005. I used to work as head of sustainability for Europe's largest gaming business, and I was actually one of those individuals that went around local authorities lobbying for casinos. And I can tell you that it gave me a great deal of experience, which means I feel very passionate that we actually get behind this no casinos resolution. Not least because one of my roles was to make sure we had a very socially responsible face, but actually behind the scenes it wasn't always quite so socially responsible. We'd go out to organisations and say the economic benefit of having the casino is very significant, whilst actually going actively to Eastern European countries and recruiting workers and using funds to train them in better English speaking. So I can tell you that the social impact often outweighs the economic impact, and I fully support a no casinos resolution. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I actually don't have Councillor Morgan's experience, but I actually don't really see any reason for having a no on this. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into it, but it's just a negative, and we can revoke it anyway. So I just don't understand why we have a no. It just looks like we're saying no to things when possibly we should be more positive, and I see no reason for actually having it as a policy. But I do appreciate the effort and work people do.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I concur with the Chairman of licensing and my colleagues by the side of me. Alcohol hits the headlines time and time and time again. Gambling, very rarely. And men, women leave work, and by the time they get home, they've got no money in their pocket. Those were the old days. The new days now are you are bombarded on commercial televisions and radio, and you're bombarded with gambling. It is a pity that this document doesn't go far enough. I would urge this council to lobby government to take all gambling off of the internet, off of national television, and media, Madam Chairman, and I welcome this report. Thank you.
Councillor, would you like to come back?
Thank you. I think I don't want to get into a debate about that particular issue, but that the e-commerce gambling is a different issue. All I would say is actually, given that the casino at Seoul Central actually closed because it was unprofitable, the likelihood of us having an application in Daventry anyway is pretty unlikely. Even of the 17 licences that were issued in the Formula 8, 1 super casino, 8 large and 8 small ones, never really came to pass anyway. So the freight is quite low, but I think it's a good safeguard to have in place anyway.
Councillor Austin.
Well done. Yeah, I had to smile a bit. Chances of stopping people from gambling, there's as much chance of stopping people from eating bread or food. I don't think it'll ever happen. And as was just said by my good friend there, the chance of a casino group trying to open up a casino in Daventry district is that they would lose money. It isn't the kind of place that they want to come to anyway. They want towns and they want cities. They don't want rural areas like we want. So I don't think there's any fears, Chairman, and there's too many. There's plenty of controls already. The main one being themselves.
Councillor Carter, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've listened to all those arguments. I stand by this resolution. I am a firm believer that to adopt a no, which can, if necessary, be revoked, is a much better and safer position to be in than having nothing at all. Yeah. So I would ask Council to recommend this policy with the two that's already stated there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. This item has been proposed and seconded. Could I ask for agreement?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm now on to
Next item is SG 64/15/01, West Hackney Neighbourhood Development Plan. I believe Chris Mill is going to speak on behalf of Councillor Alan Jarkin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm privileged to speak. Alan's not here because he's ill today, unfortunately. As a local ward member of West Hampton, one of the local ward members there, I got involved in this process. I'm very pleased to tell Council the whole village got involved in the process. It's a very thorough one. Obviously progress has been made. The examiners recommended modifications to that respect to the plan. And at the end, so item number 3 tonight, your 7 recommendations, the examiner's recommendations that the NDP is modified in accordance with recommendation 2 should proceed to referendum of voters within the parish of West Hampton be accepted. West Hampton Parish Council and West Hampton residents were very happy to be involved in this process because they feel they want to have a say about the future of their village. West Hampton is one of those villages in this district which has been subject to a number of planning applications. Some have been successful, some have failed by developers. So they really want to take charge of their village to have a say in what they feel is right for the village moving forward. So therefore, the cost of the referendum of course, are market reserves, as they all are, for neighbourhood planning. So on recommendation 5, Madam Chair, following the referendum, if more than half those votes in the referendum voted in favour of the NDP, and if the business manager, that signed Bowers, is satisfied that making the NDP would not contribute contravention rights or European Union obligations, which I believe at this moment we're confident they won't do, that the NDP be formally made and form part of the Daventry Development Plan for the Daventry District. That if the NDP is made in accordance with 5, then this should be as soon as practical after the referendum result is announced by the returning officer. The subject to items 2 to 5 inclusive, the proposed decision statement set out at Appendix 1 of the report be approved. This, Madam Chairman, is very important for West Hampton. I'm very impressed with the neighbourhood plan process because so many people get involved in each village I'm aware of, and it really buys in people into the future of their village, and also the planning committee then have a guide as to how local people feel about what's right in their village when applications arrive and then they're determined by the committee. And I think this, Madam Chairman, is a very positive recommendation. I hope the 7 recommendations before you can be approved by Council tonight. Thank you much indeed.
Councillor Frenchman would like to second this.
I would, Madam Chair, just say a few words. I'm happy to second this and would offer my full congratulations to the people of West Haddon for getting this far with the neighbourhood plan. As somebody who's been deeply involved in the neighbourhood plan process, I know how difficult and protracted it can be, and I would like to commend the process of making a neighbourhood plan to all the parish councils to where it is relevant as an important way forward for the future of each of our villages. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I ask, though, that we reflect upon the fact that we've just lost 2 planning appeals, as I understand it, where the planning inspector took the local plans and applied, in their words, no weight to them. And what impact that will have going forward if people go to appeal on the basis of local neighbourhood plans and save strategies. Maybe the officers could respond to that, please, because I am concerned to read in the last week the 2 appeals where the inspector used the terms applied no weight.
Chairman, in answer to that question, I believe it to be the answer that inspectors apply weight where they consider that weight should be applied. In other words, if somebody has nearly completed the process, they do give it a weight. But if somebody's only partially through the process, not much weight is given, and that has been said so in, like you say, a couple of appeals. So it is important for those villages that are in the neighbourhood plans, they do get on and do it, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. I've just realised, in fact, that I have a business interest in that village, and therefore I intend to abstain.
Chairman, I can confirm that in at least one of those cases of appeal that you referred to, we actually successfully challenged through a judicial review, and that appeal decision has been overturned, and it will go back for a fresh appeal. So that is good news for this council.
And just on the back of that last point about Maria, we've had other appeals which have been dismissed as well recently, so this is good news that our voice has been heard. And I think it's very positive overall. That one that Maria mentioned is a very important one for that village, and we did actually win the battle. Thank you. So far. Thank you.
Right. In that case, this item has been proposed and seconded. Then Mr. Rice, would you agree the recommendation?
Agree.
Next item is 15/02, strategic planning in West Northamptonshire. Councillor Warren,
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Chandler.
The purpose of this report is to propose making a request to the Secretary of State to revoke the order which established the West Northamptonshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee and to consider proposals for new partnership working arrangements to replace the committee. Partnership working between the partner local planning authorities in West Northamptonshire, Daventry District, South Northamptonshire, Northampton Borough Council and Northampton County Council is currently underpinned by the West Northamptonshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee, established in 2008 by an order under Section 31.2 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004. The councils have also entered into a number of agreements which supplement that order. At its meeting on the 16th of July 2015, the Joint Corps the JSPC authorised the partnerships officers to examine alternative methods of joint working and regard to the national planning policy framework and the duty to cooperate with regards to the ending of the current statutory joint arrangement. A further meeting on the 20th of October 2015, having considered the report that looked at alternative models of joint working, the JSPC agreed to write to the Secretary of State requesting revocation of the order and to invite the partner councils to do likewise. I therefore ask that it be recommended that the council writes formally to the Secretary of State to request the revocation of the order under section 31.2 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, which established the Joint Strategic Planning Committee. And two, that in the event of the Secretary of State revokes the order, the Council, A, supports the establishment of a joint planning and infrastructure board supported by a memorandum of cooperation, generally as set out in draft form at the appendix of the report. And B, may withdraw from or agree to modify or terminate existing agreements that complement the joint committee arrangements as to give effect to the new arrangements.
Do I have a second for this, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This actually supports the view that all the three borough councils, that's in the West Northamptonshire area, Northampton Borough, ourselves and South Northampton Council, when we basically went down the route of the joint committee to set up the growth of West Northamptonshire, mainly around the growth of Northampton, that's why the committee was set up. We all said once we had the plan in place, we'll then revert back to our own constituent areas, and that's exactly what this is proposing, the Secretary of State does, and I hope that the Council can support the recommendations. I'm happy to second, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Other speakers? In that case, we have a proposer for this one and a seconder. Could I ask members if they approve the recommendation?
Agreed.
Next item is SG 65/15/01. Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy. Mid-year review 2015-2016. I believe Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. On the 1st of March 2012, this Council adopted the revised SITFA Treasury Management Code of Practice 2011, which requires the production of a mid-year review on our Treasury management activities. This is that review for the first half of financial year 2015-16. The mid-year review covers the following: an economic update for the first half of 2015-16 and an outlook for the next 6 months. A review of the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and the Annual Investment Strategy and the Council's capital expenditure. Members will be familiar with the topic from the finance training session that we held on the 15th of July. I believe the best way to summarise this report would be in the words of our Chief Financial Officer: we continue to work within the approved strategy. Therefore, I'd ask members to agree the recommendation that the Council's Treasury Management Mid-Year Review for 2015 and 16 be noted.
Thank you very much, Councillor Long. Can I have a second for that, please? Councillor Crosby, do you wish to speak? In that case, this item has been proposed and seconded. Could I ask members to agree the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next item is SG 65/15. The 2016-17 Capital and Revenue Budget and Medium-Term Financial Plan. Will you Councillor on again?
Unfortunately, Chairman, yes. Sorry about this. Thank you, Chairman. Unlike my colleague, Councillor Bill Parker, the Cabinet member for Finance at Northamptonshire County Council, who yesterday had the unenviable task of presenting the county's draft budget for 2016-17, containing not an unsubstantial number of cuts. I'm pleased to be able to present to Daventry District members a considerably more favourable set of draft budget proposals for the coming year. Our budget proposals for next year, which I will go on shortly to detail, go hand in hand with our ongoing work to build a robust financial plan over the next 5 years. Our financial strategy is to make the Council self-sustaining, to reduce the reliance on government grants with the inevitable peaks and troughs in public service that brings. We are able to take this approach because of tough choices made over recent years, combined with the prudent budgeting during the same period, which has seen us achieve a financially stable position. And I believe the team here at Daventry and our Chief Financial Officer deserve considerable credit for achieving this position. The purpose of this report is to provide an update of the financial context and issues that will influence the 2016-17 capital and revenue budget and the medium-term financial plan. These are amongst the issues referred to in the member training date on the 9th of September, Chairman. The medium-term financial plan 2014 to 2020, as summarised in the table at 3.1 of the report, was updated and approved by Council on the 30th of July 2015. Since the projections at 3.1 were presented to Council, the medium-term financial plan assumptions were further updated and revised to reflect decisions agreed by Council. I would draw members' attention in particular to the levels of non-earmarked reserves, earmarked reserves and total reserves. The budget setting process involves constant review and is appropriate to further update the medium-term financial plan to reflect any changes to previous assumptions. These matters are summarised at 3.2 of the report and include settlement funding, non-domestic rate retention, savings and efficiencies, new homes bonus, annual council tax increases, council tax support scheme, and the 2015-16 outturn position. It also includes growth bids, revenue plus revenue effects on capital schemes, and cost of living. These matters are addressed in some detail in section 4 of the report. Capital programme details are contained in the report at section 6 and include £352,000 for the refurbishment of the Abbey building. This expenditure actually develops a £42,000 per annum revenue saving. £110,000 for the planning application work for the canal boat lift. And Chairman, this gives me an opportunity to clarify the misunderstandings contained in certain letters published in today's edition of the Daily Express. We know this is for the planning application, not for the full work, for the full project. 40,000 for repair work to the Well Lane retaining wall in Welton. £200,000 towards superfast broadband. This was originally included in the medium-term financial plan, but is now transferred to the capital programme. £103,000 for a footpath stroke cycle track, which is a link from Timkin Open Spaces to the railway line cycle track. Community youth provision. This is a report being presented later in this meeting. Town Centre Vision, sites 1 and 5. Once again, report being presented later in this meeting. £7.65 million for the New Homes 2 project. These matters are addressed in some detail in section 6.4 to 6.11 of the report. I draw members' attention to the chart at section 7, updated capital programme, and in particular to the projected capital reserves, which initially, after dropping from 12.9 million in 2015-16 to 6.7 million in 2017-18, before once again they increased again to 14.3 million in 2020-21. I don't believe that any further comment on the detail contained within the report is now required from me. I will therefore summarise my presentation to you. As was explained at the time, the Council continues to build a robust medium-term financial plan, as well as demanding an innovative and challenging capital programme. The financial strategy of self-sustainability, coupled with the criteria set for approving any growth, are proving to help achieve the Council's aspirations, visions and objectives. It is inevitable that changes in future funding arrangements will bring challenges, some of which can be managed by prudent assumptions already built into the medium-term financial plan. Changes beyond those already assumed may mean difficult decisions around service provision have to be made. Our levels of reserves will enable this scenario to be managed in a timely manner. The medium-term financial plan covers the current financial year and a further 5 years. The updated NTFP should not be viewed as a fixed plan or a binding strategy, but as a risk management model with underlying assumptions and objectives that can and should be reviewed and revised in the light of changing circumstances and new information. With this information now to hand, I would ask members to agree the following recommendations. 1. The updated assumptions and proposals concerning the financial strategy and development of the 2016-17 budget preparations process, as set out in section 4 of the report, are approved. 2. The revised budget projections incorporated into the medium-term financial plan, as set out in table 5.1 and appendix A of the report, are likewise approved. 3. The draft proposals for the capital programme, as detailed in section 6 and appendix C of the report, be approved. And 4. The limit on expenditure prior to council approval of a business plan under financial regulation 4.6.1 be 150,000 rather than the normal 75,000 for the new Homes 2 scheme. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Before I ask for a seconder, can I please apologise because I didn't realise that part of the number of this item was missing, and it should be SG 65/15/01. Sorry. Sorry, 02. Can I have a second for that item, please? Councillor Osborne? Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair.
In that case, then, we have a proposer and a seconder. Could I please ask? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was a little bit confused about one point in here. I was hoping to get to the last strategy meeting, but unfortunately I have to send my apologies. So otherwise I would have asked a question there. But on the 4.11 in the strategy paper on growth bids, it says lodge roads improvements of 0.009 million as a one-off. And then it goes on to say tenders have been received back from the contractors and the cost is over the 0.081 previously agreed. And I was a bit confused about those two amounts actually, because I was trying to understand what it was telling me. Because I was looking at one thinking, oh, right, so that's that. And then it's leapt up, so I wondered if you'd be able to explain that one for me, first of all, please. And then I have got another one on the Canal Arm boat lift. Obviously, reading it and to compare that with the Falkirk wheel, I find quite amusing. It's going to be absolutely nothing like that whatsoever, because one is for a canal boat to move from one canal to another canal to on-go its journey. And here we're talking about putting a boat lift to go from a canal into a little stretch of water, and speaking on behalf of residents, most of the residents I've spoken to think it's an absolute joke.
Chairman, can I take 4.1 first, and can I defer that to Chief Financial Officer, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, the original bid for those bids was for £81,000, and some of the tenders that come back, that was insufficient, so we had to increase it to 90,000, which is why the growth bid is just for the extra 9,000 on top of the original bid.
Right, thank you. Was there a second part?
Well, I'm happy to answer this.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure you were going to do that now or later. Obviously, Councillor Randall does talk to lots of people, she tells us that a lot, and they'll obviously all have the same message. Not the message I'm receiving, Councillor Randall. I'm sure there are people who have that view. There's also people who have a different view. And I wouldn't get hung up on the Falkirk wheel. The purpose of the Falkirk wheel being mentioned is the Falkirk wheel. It doesn't matter if it goes from one canal to another or the same canal to another. We already said earlier on today that our boat lift will replace 4 locks. And that's why the cost we do the two together is cheaper than if you do one and change it later. It's about the attraction of that. And it's actually, the Falkirk wheel does attract a lot of tourists, a lot of visitors to that area. And that's in Falkirk in Scotland, and that's a nice part of the world. We also have a lovely part of the world here actually, with lots of other attractions in this area, where people might want to come and see the boat lift, but also see lots of other things. It's not just the boat lift. And therefore the whole purpose is economically driven to try and create more jobs, create a bigger economy, to actually get a lot more wealth in the area, and that will benefit, hotels, whoever you want to say, lots of businesses will benefit from this. And that's why I think people should be very careful to think about the longer term implications of this. It's not just about a nice boat lift and you see boats going up and down. It's actually about the economic benefits that come with it. And I think this is something that we've got to keep saying, and to tell people, they might not like it, that's fine. But, you know, we've got jobs here at stake, we've got the economy at stake. The world is, as you know, very competitive at the moment, as it always has been, and we've got to fight for our area, and that's what we're doing. And the people who have the imagination to see this moving forward realise there can be really good long-term economic benefits. I was only saying yesterday, actually, the opening of the Cut in the Sod on the A45 Link Road, which opens up the Grove in Daventry town to make these things happen. I was saying we had the long-term economic plan here in place in 2002. So we're ahead of our own guns on that one. But this is part of it, and it's, I know Councillor Howard has been very vocal and actually promoting this, because it is about the long-term benefits. So I think people don't necessarily understand that, but we have to keep putting that message out. I just want to get that point across, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. I had a number of comments actually. I'm trying to keep them as concise as I can. When the strategy papers were submitted, I think officers were waiting for more information from the spending review, particularly about the business rate retention scheme and the new homes bonus. And I just wondered if there was a possibility of having an update today just on what you might have learned since that announcement. I just wanted to make the observation that the appointment of an economic development officer seems to me entirely sensible and could be very valuable. I noticed one of the ambitions is to produce a directory of businesses, and I would just encourage that officer when they're appointed to make sure that they talk to parishes and to the town council, who I know have a lot of that information already. I know as part of the neighbourhood planning process that has come to the fore, and in Broadston alone we've got 80 businesses, so I'm sure they'd all like to make the acquaintance of the economic development officer. I think the canal arm has been rehearsed and maybe will be continued to be rehearsed later on in the meeting, but I regret very much the proposed expenditure on the boat lift in particular. I just think it is a nonsensical proposal to build a canal arm and then to use the argument that we need to reduce time spent on the canal arm by building a boat lift. It just doesn't seem, and I'm not surprised people don't understand that and about that long-term vision when something so apparently nonsensical is being proposed. And I think we need to make much more. We are a part of the waterways. We have a fantastic canal heritage that we could be spending money on and promoting and making that economic gain with our existing assets. And we're also able to boast the fact that we're at the junction of the waterways across England and across the country. And I think that's what we need to promote. And the word I was struggling for then was the watershed. The watershed of southern England. We have all these natural water-related assets that we don't shout about, and we could do, and we could make much more of those things that are already here in our community. A few more comments. We're being asked to approve an increased expenditure limit on the production of a business plan, £150,000 to the £75,000 for the New Homes 2 scheme. And all I would say is it better be a good business plan, because it seems to me a very radical about turn to go from another rental proposal to a home ownership scheme. I think there are lots and lots of issues to be explored in that business plan. I would hope it's very full and detailed. I would like to see a greater share of affordable housing in that proposed scheme and a mix of shared ownership and low-cost ownership as well as a full market sale. I think it's very important in the current climate to acknowledge people's needs. And obviously we have a need, we're all aware we're under-delivering on affordable housing. I think it's an opportunity for us to act as trailblazers and to inspire developers to take our needs seriously. So I really look forward to receiving that business plan for review in the future. And I think that concludes my comments. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to comment on the canal, but I think I'm understanding that they rather have 4 locks and a boat lift. Perhaps somebody could explain why. However, what I really wanted to remark on was our corporate strategy and economic development. It seems to me that, as Abigail has already said, it's very important to have this economic development officer. I think it would be a wonderful resource that we have needed perhaps for some time, but I'm sure the team are very fully stretched. We live in very exciting times, and I very welcome this appointment. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask officers to come back on the Councillor Campbell's question?
Thank you, Chair. I think I remember from the start the question was around the comprehensive spending review, and particularly an update on new homes bonus and business rates retention. Well, since the review, there's been a barrage of publications analysing the particular review, and there's a very common line in all of them that says the devil is in the detail, and unfortunately it's the detail that's sadly lacking. They are headlines that are put out there, and we have yet to see what some of those headlines actually mean for us here at the Council. With regard in particular obviously to the new homes bonus, they've mentioned that at the moment they're looking for a minimum of 800 million to be cut from that budget. The total budget that new homes bonus stands at the moment is 1.2 billion, so that's a 2/3 cut on the face of it, of the new homes bonus money. What they haven't said is how they're going to do that. They've mentioned that they will drop it from 6 years to 4, which takes care of the third of it, but not how they're going to do the other third. I say the third because they're talking about bringing this in for 2017-18. By then, the new homes bonus budget should be more like 1.5 billion, so the cut may well be not as bad as we first envisaged. But then there'll also be the debates and the arguments put forward as to how that remaining money is shared between authorities. As you know, at the moment it's 80-20 between us and the County Council, who no doubt will make representations as to, because although that money is being topsliced for social care, the County Council, like ourselves, still rely on their share of new homes bonus for their budgets. So we wait to see what happens with that. On a very positive note with that, whilst those numbers have been cut, what looks like considerably, it goes back to our very prudent approach in terms of the numbers. And members will recall that within the budget we actually allocate 100% of our allocation of new homes bonus. But we're very prudent in terms of the numbers that we include for growth going forward. So whilst that funding may well have been cut, our numbers in growth have been very prudent, so we should be able to manage that in future. With regard to business rates retention, and sometimes the sort of headlines of 100% retention, this authority collects something like £44 billion in business rates, which we actually get around £3 million of that. So by the time the share and the levies and the tariffs, and what they've said is with that 100% retention, obviously at RSG, which is the revenue support grant that there will be gone and replaced by business rates, comes new burdens. So for all the things that the revenue support grant used to cover, we won't just be given money through business rates, we'll also be given a number of new burdens, but we're not told what they are just yet, and we're not told how that will be split between authorities, things like that. So it really goes back to my first point that the devil is in the detail, and we are expecting the settlement announcement. I'm sad to say that I think it will only be a one-year announcement. We know that with any financial planning, the longer you can have the information for, the better. But I suspect it will only cover 1 year, and we're expecting that around the 16th or 17th of December. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 more speakers on this item. The next one is Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First and foremost, I'd like the portfolio holders comment regarding the neighbouring council at the beginning, and I compliment him on his robust piece to air and the 151 officer and her team. As you'd probably expect, Madam Chairman, I will probably go off on one, and I will. Prior to moving to Daventry, I took part in the Drambury Marathon. What's the Drambury Marathon got to do with our boat lift? The Drambury Marathon ran from Glasgow to Edinburgh. You had to use a 4-wheel vehicle. You had to use an inflatable dinghy, for want of a better word, with a 4 horsepower engine. When we went through places like Falkirk, Linlithgow, the deprivation, dereliction was absolutely unbelievable. I was through the London Docklands going down and down. You've never seen anything like what you've seen in and around Falkirk. The rats, excuse me saying so, as they were, as big as cats. Somebody come up with a brilliant idea of regeneration for that area. And it wasn't just about bringing 2 locks together, or 2 canals together, I beg your pardon, madam. It was about the regeneration of the whole area. They put out a report to various architects, engineering companies to come up with an innovative idea for the wheel. Yes, it does take boats from one level of the canal to another one, and they can carry on their journey. Not far from here, if we go to Stoke Bruin, we have a canal that a little man runs a boat and it goes into a tunnel and back out again, and he earns a fortune. We send coaches, and in our local paper, people are sent from Daventry and around the country to go and visit the Anderton boat lift up on the west coast. If you go to Breve in Holland, you'll see the same. The point being is that up at Falkirk, each barge carries 100 people. The last time I travelled on it, it was £8 a throw. That's not a bad revenue for going in, going round, up and back. Canal barge users will put that on their itinerary to say, yes, I've done it, in the same way that I've driven around Nürburgring and I've driven on Brooklands racetrack. Madam Chairman, I know you're urging me to stop, but I'm not. Councillor Over and I went through the options ex-councillor Over, I beg your pardon, leader, of various options of inclined planes, and we actually convinced several people that if we put a 4-degree slope on the canal, we wouldn't need any locks or any lift. The lift went out and the design came back. It may surprise people that when the lift goes up, the other one goes down. That's not rocket science, but it takes about 2 or 3 gallons of water to make that difference only. So the fact of people saying, oh, we're not going to get the water to do it, is a load of nonsense. The thing with Falkirk, and Breve and Anderton, it's regenerated that area. Thousands upon thousands of people go to those lifts. Not boat people, but visitors, tourists. With a tourist attraction, I have the opposition complaining that footfall in the high street is going down. Footfall here is going down. Well, why not improve our lot? It's cheap in the sense that it will bring people to Daventry. I didn't hear anybody complaining that we were going to spend millions upon millions of pounds on the floor bypass. And in fact, one of our colleagues said, it's taken us 40 years to do it. We were not responsible for the floor Weedon bypass. It was our colleagues at County. We wouldn't have got the bypass now had we not put the money in. So let's get back to talking sensibly about the regeneration of Daventry, bringing footfall in and improving our lot, madam.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ford. Councillor Osborne.
I was still enjoying the last speaker, Chairman. From one right-wing conservative to another one. Just 2 points, Chairman. Do you know I got fed up with it in the last 6 or 7 years? Is bits and pieces in newspapers and digs and orchestrated questions tonight about the canal arm and what's it going to cost and what's this bit going to cost and laughter and little niggles and digs. But this council is going to build, is going to get a canal arm, is going to have a boat lift, and it's going to happen. Yes, it's going to cost money, but it's going to happen, and this council is going to make it happen. So if the newspaper man is listening, I'm sure he's not because he's not here, put it in the newspaper that we support it, we openly support it, and as soon as it happens, Chairman, it happens. That's number one. Number two, the councillor in front of me said that we ought to concentrate on more on affordable housing and parts of affordable housing. I would say that this council has concentrated. It was one of its major projects, certainly when I was housing portfolio holder, and I'm sure now the current man is housing portfolio holder. I spent nights galore in parish halls talking to parish councils about the very thing. You go to Great Oxington when the snow is thick and talk about affordable housing. And we used to go around. This was the council's big aim, promotion of affordable housing to various villages. All of you are aware of it because I've been to your villages, and I'm sure the current member has as well. So don't say this council doesn't promote it. That is one of its big things. It does promote it, and wherever this council can get affordable housing for the people that live here in whatever shape or form, it will do so. Okay?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I now regret putting my hand up to speak because I can't match the rhetoric of the previous speakers. But I shall just put my two penneth in, as all politicians like to do. I have last year actually visited Falkirk, and the only reason I went there with my wife was to see the boat lift. And we were very sad, and we paid our £8, but I think it's actually gone up now. And we went on a 20-minute cruise. We went on it, we went up, we came back, we got off. But then we spent a lot of money in the cafe, in the shops. I have to say we didn't visit Falkirk because it didn't really appeal to me, because despite the thousands of people that visit the wheel and the queues that there were to actually go on the lift, Falkirk didn't appeal to me as much as Loch Lomond did at that particular afternoon, despite the rain. But I think that it beholds Daventry as a beautiful county to actually add a bit more pizzazz in terms of visitor attractions. We have lovely houses, we have lovely gardens, but we have very little in the way of industrial assets. Weedon Depot is another one that probably falls into a similar category. So I think it's beholden on us to look at ways of attracting people in here. I'm looking at the rural economy, and though we're talking about Daventry, I'm sure if people come to visit Daventry to go on the boat lift, they will spend money here, they'll visit Oldthorpe, they'll visit Holdenby House, they'll go to the pubs, they'll go to the hotels, and I think as a neglected visitor tourist destination, Northampton and Daventry in particular needs to pull its socks up, as Councillor Warren is trying to do with the Love Daventry and all those sorts of initiatives. Howard, sorry, I'll get it right one day. That I think it's, we need to develop these attractions, and we need to get more people in to visit our beautiful area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I don't intend to talk about Green Holiday or bridges. I just wanted to give a note of appreciation for the financial plans and strategies and the general management of our finances in the council, and just recognise the good work of our Chief Financial Officer and your team. It's one of the things, when I became a politician for the first time in May, really impressed me, the way that the books are kept and your financial vision for this council, and I really appreciate that, and I think we're very lucky to have a team such as yourselves.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, that's very kind of remarks, Councillor Campbell, because actually this council's been doing this for many years, and it does pay dividends, Madam Chairman, because obviously it enables us to plan ahead and do all the things we're doing. The point I want to come back on, something that Councillor Campbell raised. Councillor Osborne about affordable housing. Councillor Osborne obviously covered the local bit, but nationally we have a real challenge here now, because registered social landlords are struggling, the rent freeze is making it more difficult, We know that developers are squeezing the numbers more and more, so they're squeezing their profits out on the market housing. And there's also the affordability issue. And there's a very good leaflet at the moment about the affordability of houses in East Midlands, which I have a copy of here, home troops. I can leave a copy in the members' room actually. But you look in here about East Midlands, about the average cost of a house compared to the average salary, and then you see the difference we're facing. The ratio is huge. Now obviously there's not enough houses on the market. It's going to take time for that to adjust. And it would appear at the moment that developers actually are not building enough houses and never will do, because in a way you could argue it suits them. I'm not saying that's what's going on, because obviously it keeps prices high. But obviously in terms of affordability, it makes life very difficult, especially for our younger citizens, unlike us when we were young, or some of us I should say, when we were younger, when actually in those days you could afford to buy a house without actually breaking the bank. But nowadays for new people, you know, even in this area, you buy a 2-bedroom place, and against the mortgage you require to the house price, it's quite tough for people. So I think affordable housing actually is an issue. When I say affordable under that title, that's quite a challenge. And I know the government's trying to step up to that challenge, but it's going to be quite difficult, I think, to overcome that, Chairman. We at this level will do our very best to make sure we provide the affordable housing we need for our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the opposition for objecting to everything we're trying to do for this town and district, as always, but they must understand that we're doing it for the good of Daventry, we're doing it for job creation, we're going to get higher end jobs and this, and the investment that is going to come in not only because of this, we're also looking at blue chip investment companies that are going to come in and may invest in this project. So it may not cost half as much as I think it may cost, because if blue chip companies want to invest, I think we should allow them to. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to say this till later, but as soon as we digress from finance, we might as well carry on. But I've been on the council for a number of years. I can remember the time when there was a town centre strategy where one of the highlights was getting some hanging baskets up in Daventry. The whole process of the town centre strategy over the years is about bringing people into Daventry, not just to live, but to provide facilities, the spin-offs, which people have always dreamed about having in Daventry and in the villages. Now, while I was chairman, I got accosted at several events in the district. One was a inauguration of a new vicar at Charlwelton, I think it was. I remember the gentleman there. There were all people outside the district who were interested about the canal and the possibility of some sort of boat wheel, etc., as it was being talked about at the time. And we don't have a lot to attract people from outside. It's all right. We can attract people from Daventry Town to come into Daventry Town and do their shopping, but we need to be bigger than that. We need to bring people in. We've got underused heritage assets within the district. We have a good communications facility, but we fall short at the time. And one of the reasons I backed this management thing is it was imaginative, it was controversial, but we have to be like that if we want to get somewhere. The spin-offs are tremendous. The council has a duty, an economic duty, and it is acting as a pump priming thing. And that's what it's all about. Because if the council takes the lead and brings in the people to provide this sort of infrastructure and to add an attraction and bring people in, it's a self-perpetuating wealth cycle. People will come in, they will spend. It's no good saying, it's quite easy to say we could spend on the existing canal work. Believe me, a few litter bins at Braunston Canal won't bring people from Scotland down to have a look. I think overall, the carping which has gone on forgets that if you're not going to do an imaginative town centre strategy plan like has been invoked, you've got to have an alternative. And there's been no alternative coming from the opposition. In fact, if they had an alternative, it's probably as excitable as Jeremy Corbyn is taken us and his methods of dealing with war and terrorism, because I don't think they've got an alternative to it. And as far as affordable housing goes, this council has done work over many years. It's provided money, it's provided schemes, it's lobbied government, even when it's perhaps been politically unacceptable for a Tory council to lobby a Tory government, it's done it. And I just think that it's about time that we took the bull by the horn, started being positive for Daventry and the district, because the utopia or a better place will be at the end of it for everybody.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I feel rhetoric out, but I'm not joining the party anyway. It's an interesting vote. First of all, before I get there, thank you, Councillor Lambert, and Audrey and the team for giving us good order. In fact, actually, I feel safe in your hands, I think. Cautious man, I think. But no, thank you, seriously. But yesterday, I left Daventry 5 o'clock in the morning, and by 7 o'clock, I was on the cable cars going over the Thames. I don't know if anybody's seen these cable cars going over the Thames. Absolutely, and you go past Canary Wharf, which of course was wasteland. Probably when Councillor Paul was there. And the Dome, which of course our previous government introduced, and it was a white elephant, but it is now a successful arena and venue. And whilst I don't want us to turn into London and be differentiated by London, this is the kind of thing that is exciting people. And I think we can't, looking around at the retail space, you go to Banbury and there's a new retail park there attracting people. Rugby's been regenerated with a new park there. We cannot offer quite the same mix of tantalising, appetising things to bring people into our town. So what are we going to do? And I think ultimately is the devil in the detail. But when you go to places like yesterday and you look at the development and the ambition and the wealth that's being driven by it from what it was, you have to say we have to be more imaginative. And I think that's the only way forward, really, to be imaginative on this subject. Going back finally to the affordable issue, I think there is ultimately a problem here. And yesterday I was coming back reading the London Evening Standard and passed it on to our leader today. There was an interesting feature in the property section which actually basically said as good as move to Northamptonshire because quite frankly it's cheap compared to London. So that might change things and make us fear, but also if we're going to have good quality jobs and employment and the right people we spending power, we also need to do our best to attract people. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And if you have been on the cable cars, it's quite an exhilarating ride and it's inspirational. I don't like lights.
We have one more speaker, and that's Councillor Lambert.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll just wrap that up. There is an alternative, actually, and you can remember some years back, Daventry Town did take a vote on whether they wanted the canal. It was the hugest turnout at any election, I think, to the fact there was queuing out the door, and that it was a high majority that they didn't want the canal. What the people are, and every single week, people are still complaining, and people used to come on bicycle all the way to Coventry, is the outdoor pool. People love an outdoor pool. They were down on that Eastern Way. People are leaving this town to go to parks in Wellingborough.
Why did they vote Conservatives in then?
I don't know, but you know what? It's going to be interesting tonight to see why they did. But a park down there in the centre of our town that could have everything. You could have a pool with a retractable roof. You could have a cycle track. You could have a running track. You could have a quiet reading area because we've got an educational block up the top. It's whether you want, and all that will bring loads of people to this town. People are not shopping in this town because they are going to places like Rugby that have done an amazing job. They've got everything there, and their parks are beautiful. Do you know what? I don't even think we've got one flower in our park. They're dismal.
Madam Chairman, I have to come back on that. I do apologise. 1,200 people only out of 25,000 people voted. So let's get that clear about how many voted for a boat lift, Madam.
I'll be one now. I'm sorry, I need to close this.
I haven't spoken, Chairman. Oh no, it's your one quick comment.
One quick comment.
I just want to say, if Councillor Randall is so unhappy, what are you doing living here still? Why don't you move to Rugby or wherever? You know, you moan about the place so often. You're never happy with anything we want to do. If you don't like it, then go somewhere else. It's fantastic.
I think we'll finish this one now. Right, we have a proposal for this item, and it's been seconded. Please ask members to
Agreed.
Next item is SG 66/15/01. Review of asbestos management policy. Councillor Milton.
Okay, first of all, let me apologise because I don't think I'm going to be able to follow the act of the debate on the item before. Test me if you will. However, the subject I am presenting is asbestos, and it's not an item we should dismiss in importance. The Council has a legal duty to implement proper procedures and controls regarding asbestos to ensure the safety of all. The policy was last revised in 2008, so it's well due for revision. The outcome of the present review recommends that a short policy statement is put in place for managing asbestos with a procedural aspect in an operational document to be managed by officers. This approach is designed to enable staff to work effectively and is a prudent course of action as officers are the technical experts in the field to manage the procedures. It goes without saying that as a council we must ensure our duties to manage asbestos are in place. I therefore ask the council to approve the recommendations before them. Thank you.
Can I have a second now? Councillor Milton.
Yes, Chairman, nothing to say. I was acknowledging that Councillor Osborne also had around them.
Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I've actually been involved with asbestos, actually on the wrong side of it. Many years ago I used to work for British Timken, and we were never, this was a dust done, and unfortunately years later we found out just because we'd been doing some work, nobody on pipes, nobody explained anything to us, and then after we found when our bins were taken away that everything was in quarantine, it was asbestos. We all then we found out that we actually had a policy. Nobody bothered at all. We all had to go to hospital. We've all, it's all been noted that we've all worked with it in small spaces. It's so important. It's so lethal. I did it again when I worked. I've been very good with asbestos. And the thing with it is it's so difficult to tell what it is. I was told, I went into a school, as most of you know, I'm an electrician, went into a school, they needed some new lights in the music room. I asked to see their asbestos records. They said, oh yeah, it's all okay, don't worry about it. Me being so stupid, listened to them, carried on, and when I was drilling I was thinking, this just doesn't look right, it doesn't look right, it was glinting. So then I finally got onto the county council and spoke to them there, and they went, yeah, that's asbestos. And everything in the music room had to be thrown away. They had to start right from the beginning. It costs an absolute fortune. It's a danger. It's an awful thing if you do end up with asbestosis. It's a very nasty way. Very nasty illness. And yeah, I totally back this and training and everything. And we should definitely, everybody should all be for this as well.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like some clarification on the recommendations. We were asking to adopt the revised asbestos management policy in 1. But in 2, we're ceasing to have policy of the previous management of asbestos policy. but then it's going to remain as an operational procedure until such time as alternative arrangements are approved. Surely if we've got one to adopt tonight, that becomes the operating policy. So should there not be some better grammar to the recommendations that what's down?
I'm not good with that again. Thank you, Councillor Perry. The reason for the recommendation being worded the way it is, the current document is a lengthy document, probably 15 pages in length. It goes into vast detail about really sort of fine details about how one goes about the personal management aspects. We didn't want to have a situation whereby, because the council's replaced it with a concise policy, there was no operational document in force. There is a draft new procedure currently being considered by officers. It is intended now to be submitted to January senior management team for approval by the chief executive. So between now and then, we want to make sure the old policy remains in force simply as a procedure, subject to the new concise policy. So we at no point don't have a detailed set of operational procedures in effect. That's all it's about.
Agreed.
Thank you. No more speakers. We have that proposed and seconded. Could I ask members to agree the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you. Next item is SG 67/15/01. Rural Transport and Economic Strategy 2015-2020. Councillor David James.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members may recall that the production of a rural transport and economic strategy was first proposed by a task panel of the Scrutiny and Improvement Committee. That has since been taken forward and has now been prepared, and it has been recognised, following on from that there is considerable scope for economic activity within our rural area. Certainly not less than about 60% of our population is in the rural area. Not quite as much as Rugby, with its just slightly over 100,000, which can support all these activities, but nevertheless a considerable number of people and lots of opportunities, as we've demonstrated quite recently. One of our largest investments, of course, is in the Daventry development link, which will open up Daventry to further investment. And other initiatives that take place, especially when, if we're successful in our bid for a strategic economic development officer, other opportunities will come along within the various villages, not only the larger settlements, the 4 or 5 larger settlements within our district, but other areas too. The potential for development of the Cape Speed tunnel, for example, which could have a significant side effects to employment, research, development and so on. There are dynamics. So it gives me great pleasure then to propose that the Rural Transport and Economic Strategy 2015 to 2020 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I feel like I've talked myself out this evening, which is unusual. Yes, I'm happy to second this, and I think it's a good start to the addressing the problems that we have in the rural areas, obviously, with regard to these transport issues. I think it shouldn't be forgotten that as well as an economic benefit, they also have a very great social benefit, and social isolation and I suppose education, which could be a financial one, are also very important aspects, as well as the general economic well-being of the villages. And I think this strategy is a very good first step along a very long route, if you'll excuse the pun there, weak as it is. And I'm happy to second this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks. I guess I just wanted to say how much I welcome the work that's gone on to produce this report. I think it is very important, as previous speakers have said. And just to say, by way of that Councillor Randall and I never oppose for opposition's sake. We're very happy to commend work where we think it's appropriate and useful and important for the people in this district. And I think those in this room who've spoken, I think you will know that we work very hard for the people we represent and for the district as a whole. And I think the kind of personal comments on us tonight, notwithstanding disagreements about policy, haven't been very helpful, and I don't think will be very well received by people in the wider district. So I just wanted to say that. But going back to this important piece of work, I think it was interesting that Councillor Long drew favourable comparisons with Bill Parker's comments yesterday, but we will all be aware that the cuts of the County Council will inevitably have an impact on us and on our ability to deliver services. And I'm thinking in particular about proposed cuts to bus subsidies. And I think the work that's gone on to date and the work that needs to go on in the future we need to keep a watchful eye on those threats like that and the impact on how people use public transport in our district. There's also a lot of highlighting the difficulty, which I completely understand, about officer time and the resources available to us to take forward some of these strands. I think one obvious omission is the work that we as individual members in our wards can take. That we can be champions for this kind of policy and the work that will need to go on in individual communities across the district. And I think that would be an important thing to recognise as we go forward and try and deliver it. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The only opportunity I can do it, Chairman, but transport links, I thought I'd tell you that another 60 places open up along the police station car park, which is roughly transport linked, either tomorrow or Monday, and it's not chargeable yet. We have over 300 vehicles coming to Longbutley every day, and they're parking in the village, on the roads and the verges and in the car parks. And even the 300 car park won't cope with it soon, but there is another 60 places open up shortly, so just for your information.
In that case, we have a proposer and a second for this item. Would I please ask members to approve the recommendation? Before we go on to the next three items, can I please just remind members that part of each one of these have pink papers with them and they came to strategy. So can I please ask you if you think it's a bit of deal with that, you will need to go into closed meeting. First item is SG 67/15/02, business plan for the commercial property improvements. And that's Councillor James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The business plan for commercial property improvements. This is a nice little bread and butter issue, this one. Members will be aware that the District Council has a commercial property portfolio which comprises something like about 106 units, the majority of which are the industrial units and moreover contained on the Royal Oak Industrial Estate. Consistent with its duty to be a good landlord and a responsible landlord, and also to maintain the value of the commercial property portfolio, it is necessary from time to time to carry out refurbishments, improvements and adaptations. Sometimes small units are in demand, sometimes slightly larger ones are in demand. So a plan has been worked up that allows for the constituent parts of the portfolio to be updated as required and put in good condition, with tenantable repair, and also to improve the energy efficiency of some of these buildings, as well as marketability too. So there are no financial difficulties at all. They're well within the revenue and capital budgets. So it gives me great pleasure then to propose the recommendation that the business plan for commercial property improvements is approved, being scheme approval for the purposes of financial regulation 461. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin, would you like to second it?
Yeah, I'll second it. It's an excellent report, Ben, and all the details are in there, and we have a good track record. Thank you, Madam.
Anyone speak case, we have a proposer and a seconder. Can I ask members to approve the recommendation, please? Next item is SG 68/15/01, Phoenix Youth Centre Extension and Enhancement Project Business Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, the recommendations before you, as stated, refer to the business plan for the extension and enhancement of Phoenix Youth Centre. Now, the centre is highly regarded, and as I stated at strategy, one of the best in the county. This project will increase the capacity on what it offers to our communities across the district. And I will repeat, across the district, and I would emphasise, not just in the town. Now, recently, I attended a meeting of the Disabled Forum. Representatives of Phoenix were there, and their plans to improve the facilities were excellent, particularly the facilities for the disabled. They're first class, and I know many members here will welcome this. Something very dear to their hearts, I know. At strategy, officers brought to our attention that there was a funding shortfall of between £120,000 if the VAT was fully recoverable and £408,000 if the VAT was fully payable. The current fund is provided by Section 106 money, Sport England and Landform, the developers of Nickel Park. Now, the recommendations are there before you. The reports were on page 72, so I'm sure that you've all looked at these and read them. Now, I'm proposing an addition to recommendation number 1, and I think I should give you some reason or some explanation. A strategy, the report mentioned that tenders under the LGSS Northamptonshire procurement framework were due between strategy and the full council meeting. These were received, but our officers are concerned they did not represent value for money. In fact, the prices quoted would have made it impossible to deliver the project as planned. It is therefore proposed to switch to a 2-stage open procurement. This actually would delay the work by about a month, but should just remain within the Sport England deadlines. Officers are engaging with Sport England to explore if there is any flexibility on both deadlines and the grants on offer. But in my honest opinion, I believe this is unlikely to produce any changes. I would therefore ask the Council to approve the recommendations from strategy with the addition of these words at the end of recommendation 1. And I'll read it out for you. Subject to a change in the construction procurement process to a 2-stage open process and correspondence adjustments to the outline process. That's the recommendation, that's the amendment, and members are asked you all to support this.
Councillor Cole, you wanted a second?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I welcome it. I've worked for many years with the Phoenix. The facility, as my colleague has said, will be better suited to disabled use than any other facility in the near vicinity. It will take the visits from somewhere in the region of 36,000 a year up to in excess of 50,000 a year. The other thing I think worth noting, compliment was made of our officers, but also the council in our positive agenda. We put forward £125,000 to the Phoenix. That kick-started Sport England. They came in with a smaller offer or funding. They increased it to £500,000. The funding now, because we actually kick-started that is in excess of £1.4 million. So I think this council should be proud of the facility that will be built there in the next year or so. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Lambert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wondered if there's an update at all, because the word should is quite alarming to me on that huge amount of money. So I just wondered if there's, if we have got an update at all.
Chairman, I've got nothing further to add. I don't know if Simon's got anything to add, any further news since, but as far as I'm concerned, he's up to date and hot off the press.
Chairman, I would concur with Councillor Hills. I'm not entirely sure which should is being referred to, but essentially the report is
Sport
done.
England, providing this could all be moved to their date back.
Well, as Councillor Hills has said, as Councillor Hills has said, we think it's unlikely that Sport England will move their date, which is the end of 2016. However, we believe the revised timetable will still comply with that date. It's tight, but it is doable.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fully support of this recommendation, could I ask a question, please, of the officers, given that we're moving outside of the Northamptonshire procurement framework, that this level of public expenditure doesn't require to be put through ODU regulations, as it's above the 172,000 threshold. I'm sure Simon will be able to confirm that, just so that we're all clear.
Chairman? Yes, because the public works contract, the threshold is something over £4 million, or well under.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, this item has been proposed and seconded. Can I ask members to approve the recommendation, please? Next item. SG 69/15/01, Daventry Town Centre Vision Sites 1 and 5, proposed variation to development agreement with Henry Route. Councillor James?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to be as brief as possible, because members are getting a little bit bored with this topic and now want to see some action instead of words, but nevertheless we've got to do a few words. This recommendation that's going to be made flows from a proposal to vary the development agreement with Henry Route, because after years of waiting it has now been decided that we will come up with a viable and deliverable scheme in respect of Site 5, which would be carried out before Site 1, which was originally in the original development agreement. A deed of variation has to be prepared to permit Site 5 to be developed first, and also for some minor details of how the scheme is going to proceed, things like leasing arrangements and so on and so forth. Henry Route will pay all of the costs, legal costs incurred in respect of the deed of variation. So instead of what happened, as was originally envisaged on Site 5, there's going to be a superstore and a petrol filling station. That's not going to happen now. There's likely to be two smaller stores, probably of different quality, a hotel, family restaurant, pub, possibly a fast food restaurant too. And in many ways, it's probably, I think so, but that's a personal opinion, it's a better scheme than the original one that was brought forward. But this one is certainly deliverable and it's viable. And we need to get this done now before we can begin really to crystallise plans over a Site 1. Site 1 originally was going to be subsidised by Site 5. The fact dreams of this superstore petrol filling station had evolved, but that is not going to happen now or in the foreseeable future. So What I would like to do then is put forward these recommendations for your agreement, Council's agreement, that the proposed changes to the development agreement with Henry Group Developments Limited be approved. The authority is granted to draw up to a further 250,000 from the Town Centre earmark reserve to meet project costs, with the capital programme adjusted accordingly. And that's my proposal.
Councillor Howard, do you want to second?
Yes, I fully support this paper, and I'd like to second it. I fully understand that the market's changing in the retail business. I'd like to thank Henry Group for sticking with us, and the hard work the councillors and the officers have put into this. I would just like to say this has 100% more support. Thank you.
Thank you. First speaker, Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's pleasing to note that at a cross-party town implementation working group, which included the town council, the new plans were met very, very favourably. It's not rocket science to know that the big four supermarkets are struggling. In fact, their sales are down by very high percentage points. Walk-in retail, as my colleagues have already said, is an ever-changing market. Prior to strategy, or the day after the strategy, we had Black Friday, where everybody was on computers. In Daventry, you know, might surprise people, but our high street has fared better than most in the country. Yes, I do know we have a few estate agents, and I do know we have a few charity shops. However, we don't have very many empty shops like other high streets. This again, like the canal and boat lift, will help to increase footfall and improve our lot for the town, madam. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to really probably just cover the same points, but I did want to say as a ward member, there'll be some people a little bit disappointed with this scheme, but I do have to concur. I actually think it's really, really in keeping with the town. So, and we do need something in Daventry, don't we? So let's get on with it and let's do it, but let's also keep an eye on what happens on the link up with the town centre. We do have to maintain our focus on our town centre and make sure everything does develop and bring everything we want to this town in the longer run. But let's get on with something in the short term and let's get a start on it. So I'm supporting this recommendation.
Councillor
Thanks. Yes, I mostly agree with what's been said. I also think the focus needs to remain on Site 1 and not to let that drop off the agenda, which I'm sure we won't. But it was the closest thing to a cultural offer we had in the original plans, and I think even George Osborne acknowledged the value of the cultural pound to the economy and rewarded it well in the spending review. And I know the success of the Old Film Picture House, for instance, in Northampton, where I think they attracted 85,000 visitors in 2 years, and it's an absolute, it's a roaring success, and many people are going from Daventry to the Old Film Picture House, and it's a different model. Obviously it's an independent cinema and a different funding model, but I think it's worth keeping those things in mind. I also have concerns about the status of the library, and I think we need to keep our eye on the County Council for more reasons. Libraries are very vulnerable across the country, particularly so in Hampshire, despite Paul Blanton's leading the libraries task force across the country. So I would really urge officers and members to just make sure that we keep our eye on the delivery of the new library and the cinema to the people of Daventry. And I did rehearse my concerns at the strategy group about the potential delivery of a fast food restaurant and how that married with our ambition, our corporate ambition to achieve healthy lifestyles for residents. But Councillor Miller assured me that fast food restaurants can be healthy these days as well. So I look forward to seeing how that works out.
Councillor Manning.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Campbell has said. When the proposals first come forward, people in this town to have a cinema was something that they'd wanted for a long time. Shops they thought was going to be amazing, petrol station they thought was going to be amazing, and they hoped that we would get a Morrison's. And now we're not getting a petrol station. Don't know when the cinema and the shops are going to be. I don't know what I'm going to tell people really. I don't know what the vision is, how long it may be. Will it be something that could be a long way off, or will it be something that's, you know, quite a short way off? And I just hope that the shops that do come along, you know, are the right ones.
Thank you. Councillor Connors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to support this completely. The thing is, retail, I come from a retail background. Many people might not know this. I've spent 13 years in retail. And they say it's in the detail, and the truth is in retail, that's very true. And the retail big firms have really got it wrong. And it's very rare they get it wrong, but they really have misunderstood what's happening in the UK. And a lot of them are now in real trouble because they really wanted big units. And those are very difficult to get. So when you have a situation like this where we're actually looking at smaller units, it's actually much more sustainable in the long run. And I really do believe that this is the right way forward to re-energise the town centre. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I recognise that you're a fellow ward member, so may not be able to speak on this topic necessarily, but also agree with Councillor Wesley as ward member. Very much welcome it. Plus also the vibrancy, you know, another hotel. Particularly when also being on the implementation work group, sorted very good visuals of what that might look like, and a family restaurant. Actually, there really is a revelation here, isn't there? A family restaurant in the town, which you feel safe eating at. So I welcome all of this, and quite frankly, let's crack on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reassure Councillor Randall, because obviously there were some disappointments about the changes, but Henry Booth did it in the real world here. And to be fair to Henry Booth, they stuck with us for many, many years, and they've stuck with Daventry because they believe in our vision and plans, and there's a lot of money going into Daventry in the future. I would say the two names I'd like to come in are going to be good names. I think people will be happy with the names coming in on the food retailers. But obviously, yes, there's site one we've still got in our mind, so site one is still there. But unfortunately, the market's dictated we have to go to site 5. And I agree, I think this one's probably a better proposal than the original one. And it's been said already by many members. So I wouldn't worry too much yet, Councillor Randall. As you heard earlier, the portfolio holder was saying it's going to start fairly soon. Thank you.
Right. In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder. I will ask if members will approve the recommendation. Agreed. Right, councillors, next item is the schedule of council and committee members and members' training session.
Proposed on schedule council committee meeting 17, seen on page 127.
Can we have quiet, please?
So I just wish to propose on page 127 of the papers the scheduled council committee meetings for the year 2016-17.
We'll have a second. Councillor Ashton.
Do you want to go up? I'll help every time I can, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Sarah, can you repeat to that, please? Agreed. The next item is to note the following appointments. Can I ask Councillor Moore, please?
Mr. Chairman, the following appointments to appoint Councillor Richard Organ to the Planning Committee in place of Councillor Daniel Fribin. To note the following members have been appointed to the local plan steering group: Councillors Chandler, Catherine Lomax, Paul, Liz Griffin, Mike Warren, Richard Organ and Stephen Osborne, and substitutes Councillor Abigail Campbell and Councillor Barry Frenchman.
Thank you. Do I have a second as well, please? Councillor Paul. And could I ask you to do the next one as well, please? Oh, sorry, can I ask them to agree, please?
Agree.
In that case, can I ask you to do the next one, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appointment 11, item 11, appointment to outside body on the Council Justice Unit to appoint Mike Warren in place of Councillor Joe Gilford.
Thank you very much. Can I have a second for that, please? Warehouse. And can I ask members to agree, please?
Agree.
Thank you. Can I ask if we have any allergic businesses?
Hello, Vice Chairman.
In that case then, thank you very much everybody.